Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your latest instalment in a little bit of World Cup match reaction. Obviously, a huge moment for Australian football. Came up against the Argentinians in the round of 16, which is a great achievement for Australia and the Socceroos and football in general in this country, which we'll have a little bit more of a sort of in-depth look at in a little bit. But there is a match to review. And ultimately, as proud as we can be as Australians in terms of getting this far, ultimately, Larry, Argentina did get the job done, probably as expected. I think we'll get into what Australia could have done more at times, but ultimately Argentina proved to be the better team, got the result, knock Australia out of the World Cup, and Lionel Messi and Argentina take one step closer to a potential World Cup win.
Absolutely. And good morning to everybody from Australia. Nice and sunny today, Tom, but it'll be feeling like a somber mood in the Australian dressing room for sure. Argentina too good. And like you said, we can get into the micro level of why, but ultimately Argentina were the better team, never in doubt for me. If I'm being honest, I think the scoreline is really polite to Australia. I thought Argentina dominated from start to finish.
They dominated, yes, but in regards to the scoreline, and yes, ultimately that domination could have proved in creating one or two more chances, which would have created one or two more goals. But in regards to chances in terms of Pepper and Matt Ryan's goal, 3-1 on the balance of chances, I'd say it was relatively fair.
Yeah, perhaps. I suppose that I don't want to go too hard on Australia here, but look, as you know, I'm in a group chat with you and a few others, and I referred to some of the Australian football or some of the footballers and some of what I was seeing as donkeys. And I know in the heat of the moment, it's easy to get really frustrated, but the quality that the Socceroos demonstrated, and look, I don't expect the Socceroos to go out and dominate against Argentina. To expect such a thing would be ridiculous. And to be frank, to expect a win would have been ridiculous. But I think there is a way to lose. You can lose with a bit more respect. There's a way that you can play, and for me, it is frustrating as an Australian to see that our players take 2-3 touches on the ball. I just expect more from professional footballers. Maybe is that being spoiled watching European football my whole life, but I just expect more, Tom.
Look, I agree in regards to the state of Australian football. And here I am sitting on the couch, not a professional footballer, so who am I to criticise? But I do see that difference. But I do also look at, and what we can say why this is the case, but I also look at, ultimately, it is Australia. It is in terms of our players. We're not at the level of Argentina, and you look at the level of Argentina, unfortunately, they have probably the greatest player of all time in their team. No matter what professional players were up against a team like that, you're always going to look second best.
Yeah, that's granted. But if you look at the nature of the second goal, for example, all of that comes down to technical ability. It's 3 or 4 players taking way too many touches on the ball. Every team presses in modern football, but it was.
I feel sorry for Matt Ryan there. Ultimately, Matt Ryan's at fault, of course. This happened 1 or 2 times with David De Gea, where at his feet he's the one at fault. But I do look around the pitch. I do look at Aziz Beich. When Aziz Beich gives the ball back to the central defender, I think it might be Suter or Rolls, I forget. Then the ball goes. Beich plays the centre back and creates no angle. The next pass should be back to Aziz Beich, but he hides behind the player. Ultimately, that forces the pass back to Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan obviously should do better, but obviously, in terms of the way I viewed it, I thought Aziz Beich was quite at fault. But Aziz Beich had a good game in other respects, except for the foul, which obviously led to the first goal. But I felt sorry for Matt Ryan there because ultimately he's a goalkeeper. Yes, in the modern game, we should be sort of demanding a little bit more of our goalkeepers in regards to the feet, but ultimately he's a good sort of shot stopper with his hands, but ultimately let himself down. Ultimately it proved a pivotal moment in the match in regards to it did mean game over pretty much. I know we did get back into the game, but it was game over for me once that goal went in. But I'm not going to criticise him when we're seeing our central midfielders or attackers with sort of similar touches on the ball. If they're doing that, obviously that's going to happen in goals. So I do feel for Matt Ryan there. But one of my claim to fame, I was just thinking, I was talking to a mate throughout the game about Matt Ryan just after that mistake. One of my claims to fame, Larry, I used to play against Matt Ryan. He used to play for Blacktown here in Sydney. I once scored 2 free kicks in one game against him, one to the near post, one to the far post. I had a penalty in the last minute for a hat trick. He saved it, the bastard. I was on for my first hat trick in a while, and Matt Ryan saved it. So that is one of my claims to fame. But I do feel for him there because ultimately Australia wasn't the strongest, but ultimately I can't sort of criticise them too much in regards to the challenge that did face them.
Football Capital saying 2-1. Did Tom say 3-1? It might just be a little bit.
Could be a tie, but I might have seen Lisandro Martinez curl one into the top corner. I'll change that now.
Yeah. Look, nonetheless, see Scott's comment just here for the national team slander. Look, I'm not here to I'm not here to be unrealistic about it. Like I said, I think you have to take Australia for what they are, and in the grand scheme of things, they overachieved, and there's no denying that. And they should be proud to make it to the round of 16. I don't think anyone had them getting out of the group, but ultimately, and like I said, I think there is a way to lose. If you know what, I'm a United fan. Let me use United as an example. The way United lost to Barcelona in the Champions League final, 2011. There is nothing Man United could have done that day for me to say, well, you know what, if they did this or they did that better, just got beaten by the better side. Ultimately, the better footballers win. I expect that. But when you're seeing the ball get into the number 10, who then takes a touch that goes out for a goal kick, I'm sorry, that's really frustrating to watch. Mind you, if that was me on the pitch, I mean, I'll see people say, oh, you wouldn't do any better. I'm not a professional footballer, and I think as a nation, for the quality that we can see and the quality that we've seen in the past, I don't mean to keep going back to 2006. 90% of that squad was playing in the Premier League, Tom. Australia has the capability to produce good footballers, and the level of coaching can be there, and the level of player can be there. But fundamentally, what we're seeing on that football pitch today in Qatar is a result of the politics that's ongoing in Australia, because people like Lionel Messi wouldn't be able to make it in this country.
Well, I want to have a sort of more in-depth discussion in that in a little bit. Just one or two more. Hopefully, I'll fix the title. Do let me know if that's fixed on YouTube. But appreciate that, Borche, for the heads up. But also saying hard one to take when Argentina didn't really play well. Just want to come back to that comment. Emad here says send us a link. I'll shoot you the link on Facebook. We'll see how your quality is, because I know you were out in Darling Harbour, but would be good to get a reaction from that live site. So I will send you that link in 2 seconds, Emad. But at this point, Borche makes here, Larry, in regards to how I want to take Argentina didn't really play well. Okay, the difference in football is alarming in regards to quality. I'm not going to criticise Australia for that as much as we can sort of dissect and say it's not good enough. I'm not going to be too harsh on Australia not being as good as Argentina. That's life. Who's Argentina playing next? I'm sure Argentina are a better team than them. But it is what it is. But ultimately, what could have Australia done more? Okay, we can't turn into better footballers or have a better first touch or have better tactical awareness overnight. No. But ultimately, it's a game of football where Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. Australia could have come up today and beaten Argentina on a one-off game. What could have Australia, and whether this falls on the manager or not, I'm not sure, but what could they have done more to get the result today?
Everything is easy to say in hindsight. Ultimately, I thought Australia frustrated Argentina, so credit where it's due there. I think you've set out correctly. Messi's goal, how avoidable was it? I mean, Suter, I can be critical because his legs are open, and you should know as a central defender, you don't open your legs in the box. We're talking eighths of seconds here to think. By the time he realizes his legs are open, the ball's in the back of the net. It's very hard to be critical. I can't criticize Graham Arnold, to be honest. I think ultimately the better players won, and that's really it. The only thing, and not even a criticism, the only analysis I suppose you could provide were, could Australia have been a little bit more ambitious? It's a knockout game. Do you need to try and score a goal early to actually upset Argentina and force them into frustration? But
are you happy? Are you happy as an Australian then? Because I agree, but also the counteract to that is if you do go and you could lose 5 or 6-0. As an Australian fan, are you happy to go? And obviously not happy losing 5 or 6-0, but are you happy to take that risk and be on the receiving end of a 6-0 defeat if you actually go for it? We have this debate with Manchester United all the time. We just want to see attacking football, but that attacking football potentially comes at a cost. So at what cost are you happy to sort of really take that risk? Because I think that was the only way into the game, to press high and sort of get at them and force them into mistakes. I thought the longer Argentina have the ball, eventually going to break you down. I want to get into that first goal with Lionel Messi in a little bit. But the longer they had the ball, pressure was going to pay eventually, whether through our mistakes or their good football. And I think the only way, which would have probably hurt us at the other end of the pitch, but the only way to get at Argentina was to press them high up the pitch and force them into errors.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing is, when you look at the most successful teams in sitting in low blocks in recent time has probably been Jose Mourinho. But what I will say is, I think football globally has evolved. There is a stronger emphasis on attacking football, and there's absolutely a stronger emphasis on playing with a higher press and being more proactive with the ball. Jose Mourinho hasn't been successful for the best part of, we're nearly approaching a decade since he's last won the Premier League. or a major trophy in any European competition. And the reason I believe that is because the style of football that Mourinho was successful with, teams have figured out how to unlock that. You get rewarded for being ambitious. You get rewarded for taking risks nowadays. Um, Ultimately, I think that's why Australia should have looked to play aggressively. But if you know Graham Arnold and if you followed him throughout his career in the A League and now at Australia and in Japan as well, to be said, he is that's the style of coach he is. He's a risk adverse coach, and to be fair to him, with the caliber of player he has, again with all due respect, it is easier to teach a team to defend than it is to teach a team to score goals.
On Graham Arnold, and again, I want to sort of get into the Lionel Messi discussion in a little bit and sort of one or two talking points from the match. But on Graham Arnold, and look, hats off to him, fair play, got this team into the round of 16, fantastic achievement. Do whatever you want to him, give him the rise, keep him in the job, whatever. Okay, fair play. However, he's sort of talked about this God, okay, give him this sort of the job for tenure and sort of what a fantastic manager is. He now deserves a chance to go to a big European club, and after what he's done with the Socceroos. And I just think, look, there has been, and I like the reaction to in terms of the way the media and sort of the fans are sort of interacting with the game at the moment. Well, we need more of it. However, cast your mind back a couple of weeks and our view towards Graham Arnold. Ultimately, we've got wins against Denmark and Tunisia, which can happen. But ultimately, this is a guy who struggled to qualify for the World Cup, and I don't know who was in our World Cup qualification group. I assume teams like Jordan and Oman and teams like that. Ultimately, we scraped through from penalty shootout to get to this World Cup. Now, I just think, yes, he's done fantastic in terms of achieving the results at the World Cup, but I think having this sort of new view of Graham Arnold as this great manager, I just don't think is the case. Fair play to him, great achievement, but I think for Australia to move forward in the sort of the national setup and on the world stage, it's not with Graham Arnold, and that's not to be too critical of Graham Arnold. Fair play to him in terms of the job he has done. But as you say, in terms of taking that next step forward in the football we want to play or need to play to be successful, that's not with Graham Arnold. But as I said, his hands are potentially tied with the quality of play that he does have.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of sit in the middle. I'm with him on, yeah, absolutely great achievement. He's done well to get to the round of 16, like you said, but we need I think football fans in whole, we overreact, don't we? And I'm critical. Look, I'll be the first to put my hand up. I get caught up in the moment sometimes as well, particularly when the emotions are high, but we are overreacting. A coach should be sacked to build a statue. Look at Arsenal fans with Mikel Arteta. I got Scott in the comments. Do you remember the commentary around Mikel Arteta when they didn't make top 4 at the end of last season, May? Lots of Arsenal fans wanted him out. Now they're saying build a statue outside the Emirates for him. Like, we're so overreactionary as football fans. I think Graham Arnold, well done. Does he deserve to keep his job right now? Yeah, he does. But if there's a dip off in results or performance, I mean, I guess you can reassess. Ultimately, and I maintain this with managers particularly, you're only as good as the players you have. I think that the key, the class of the elite manager is to get the extra 5% out of their playing group, whatever the capability of that playing group is. And I think looking at this World Cup, you have to say Graham Arnold did manage to achieve that.
This point here is sort of, it's a nice segue into regards to a few talking points in the game, but Borja here from the football capital.
Exactly.
It's mostly the horrible decision making by the players that's annoying Moy mostly, and free kicks and corners overhit every time. I can't remember the free kicks and corners. I'm sure Aaron Moy from my mate looked like a mate of mine, someone who I think's had a fantastic career. From what I saw today, it definitely wasn't at it, whether that was him not being good enough or Argentina's midfield being too good. I think it's maybe a little bit of both. But in regards to some of the decision making, that is where I felt so. Whether the Australian team, the Australian players to Graham Arnold, or Manchester United on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think I'm always potentially one who maybe looks at the players before the manager and says, ultimately the players are on the pitch, they need to do better. And a lot of the frustrating thing is so many times decision making, and the biggest decision for me in terms of, it wasn't even experience, it was just a lack of intelligence, football intelligence, which does annoy me so much in regards to, look at my favourite players of all time in terms of Michael Carrick, Juan Mata, Paul Scholes. Not the most physical players, but they're very smart. Lionel Messi on the pitch, for God's sake, in terms of very intelligent players. And the turning point for me was ultimately that first goal from Lionel Messi, but Australia's contribution in that, as is Beige, the most stupid push in the back you've ever seen. Like, just when the guy's holding the throw and said, don't push him in the back, oh, he's pushing him in the back. And I just think gives away the foul. And I just think that's not bad. It's not a bad player. It's not a it's just a lack of football intelligence. And for Australia to take that next step in terms of moving forward in regards to world football, you can't have stupid decisions like that.
No. And I mean, I'll even go a step further to that. At the time, Australia was struggling to get the ball out playing from the back. And he did like a circle back toward his own goalkeeper and then try to come back around. Like, where did he think he was going to go? He put himself in a really difficult position. He lost the ball and then he gets frustrated because a player's rightfully challenging him for the ball. It was just hot-headed. It was ridiculous.
Is there a case though, and Borja here saying he was facing away from goal, and that just I was baffled by that decision. But I also flip it from the other side of the pitch, and I think it was Acuna. Is it Acuna? I'm not sure who he plays for his club football, but the left back for Argentina is obviously one of the players in terms of, as an Australian, you watch, he's very frustrated in terms of he's a little bit of a mongrel, a little bit like Alessandro Martinez, someone you'd love to have on your team, but someone you hate to play against. But I watched him, and in the first half hour, the way he was winning free kicks. Through no great football, or just in terms of understanding the game, understanding where the referee is, understanding where the linesman is, and just stepping across and just winning free kicks. And then you see our left back, as his Beach, who was, again, not to be critical of him, but I remember him come through the A-League a similar age to me, years and years ago.
Sevilla, by the way.
Sevilla, that's it. And as his Beach, in regards to just his view of the game in terms of the opposite, their left back to our left back, it was stark, and we can talk about quality in terms of the difference between Aaron Moynihan or Messi or Alessandro Martinez and Souttar. Souttar's actually, to be fair to him, quite good on the ball, I thought. But in regards to the general look of a player compared to Australia v Argentina, ultimately it comes down to what people are saying in the comments. You can have all that. It's decision-making and intelligence. And I don't know if that comes from football not being the number one sport in this country in terms of sort of growing up. I know participation levels are there, but it not being viewed as the number one sport in terms of the way we consume football as kids. It's all about rugby league or cricket in Argentina and Brazil, and Spain and France, that they live and breathe football. I don't know if that's why intelligence is sort of greater in those nations. I'm not sure there's an answer to it. But I'm just frustrated. Here I am over the last couple of weeks, Larry, saying I don't get too invested in Australian football. Like, if they lose, I don't lose any sleep over it. But what I saw from Australia today, while I can be proud in sort of getting to this stage and sort of this little bit of an achievement, it has hit me with a bit of frustration. Was that what could have been?
Yeah, of course. And that's only natural. But look, let's remove the emotion from this situation. Did anyone realistically expect Australia to get a result here? I think prior to the World Cup starting, most would have Argentina listed as favorite or one of the favorites to win the World Cup, correct? Ultimately, I think quality would have shone through in the end. And yes, I think we can absolutely dissect this game, look at moments like the foul and say, oh, what could have been? Ultimately, if Australia don't concede the first goal, they would have still sat back, looked to... they weren't even trying to get him on the counter. They were just sitting back as a means to achieve nothing. But ultimately, I think the way the game would have played out is Argentina would have eventually scored. There would have been a penalty conceded. Australia they were starting to get riddled with mistakes. And ultimately, and to your point, when you look to sit back and you're not even looking to counter, when you're just looking to absorb pressure for the sake of it, the more you don't have the ball, the more likely you are to cause a mistake. You're going to stick a leg out. Because you're fatigued. You're the one doing all the running. You made a point to me during the game, Tom, while I was messaging you, and you said Messi would have been hooked if he was an A-League player.
My next point.
The key point to what you said is 100% right. And the thing is, though, he can walk because he's analyzing. He's looking around the pitch. He's trying to see can he bring defenders in? Can he pull them out? Where are the spaces? Where are the pockets? And ultimately, that's why he gets himself in a position to score the goal he does. If you're a football team, if you don't look to dominate, and this is where, again, football philosophy is interesting. Pep Guardiola versus Jose Mourinho. Have you read Jose Mourinho's book, Tom?
No.
Mourinho has a key. There's a component, a chapter in the book where he talks about his football philosophy, and Mourinho actually believes that as a football team, you are more prone. You can actually control the game without the ball. He believes that when you have the ball, you're more likely to make a mistake, and that's Jose's football philosophy. You've seen the way he's basically displayed his teams over best part of nearly 20 years now. Whereas Pep Guardiola's philosophy is you influence the game with the ball. If you have the ball, you control how much the defense is working. You control whether the ball goes into the back of the net. Two different football philosophies, both have been successful, but look at which one has stood the length of time. It's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, no, look, football goes through cycles, whether that be players, money, in terms of the tactic, style of play. Football definitely goes through cycles. We're going through one now, which ultimately is a good one in sort of promoting good attack in football. Who knows, in 5-10 years' time, it might suit the Graham Arnolds and Jose Mourinho's again. Who knows? That's a debate for another day. Borche here saying, I want to go back to that Lionel Messi point, but do you think Ryan should have gone down for the second goal because it was contact and took the foul? I can't remember in terms of the instance, Larry. Do you remember? I do remember the goal in terms of would have been very risky for him to just give up, in my opinion, or was there a bit of a foul there?
I don't really think it was.
I think maybe a defender or a midfielder in that situation can do that, but a goalkeeper on the ball, I think I'm not going to criticise him for not playing the game in terms of trying to win a foul. I think it's a very sort of panic, sort of stricken area of the pitch for a goalkeeper. But Prem here saying same thing for the first goal today and France's first goal against us. So easy to fall asleep for the second ball after a set piece. That's my point. We talked about Lionel Messi, and I was discussing with you earlier in regards to if he was playing in the A-League or Australia, he would have been hooked at half-time for not getting around the pitch enough. In terms of that area of the pitch, you need energy, you need players that are getting up and down, sort of winning tackles, and he was standing there. Obviously, as someone who was watching this from the football point of view, without too much investment in the Socceroos, I was able to just sit back and just sort of watch what was happening. And obviously, when Lionel Messi is on the pitch, and your eyes are naturally going to be sort of gravitated towards him. And I was watching him closely, and it wasn't even walking; he was standing there. He was just standing, literally just watching the whole pitch and watching the game go by him. And on that first goal, sort of we got into the incident with Aziz Beige giveaway and the foul. Obviously, that's happened. Okay, so deal with that. The way they dealt with it, the ball came back to Lionel Messi. I think the free kick came back out to him. And what he does brilliantly, and again, this is not to criticise Australia, it's just to look at the brilliance of what players like Lionel Messi and these South American players can bring, is he stands on the ball and he stops the play. And what that does to a defender, if you've got the ball there in front of me, Larry, and you stop, what am I, as a defender, going to do? I stop as well. And at the moment you stop, it's like I heard the commentator allude to it once or twice in the commentary. It sort of lulls you into a false sense of security.
This is in the second half when he's standing off Messi as he's basically walking.
No, this is the first goal. He knocks the free kick in. The free kick comes back to him. He stands on the ball, and the defender stops, and he just plays the ball inside. And just that change of pace, okay, it's gone from 0 to 100, but that's still a change of pace. And the way he just drifts inside, and it's a 15, 20-metre run by Lionel Messi from the sideline where he has the ball into where he ends up having the finish. But ultimately, the defender is about a metre from him when he plays that first pass. From when he gets the shot away, there's no one within 3 metres of him. And I'm just thinking that movement, look, it looks so simple, and it's very easy for me as sitting on the couch saying, a defender should stay with him. Obviously, it's very hard at ground level in terms of dealing with that and watching everything else. It's obviously a very complex situation. But his movement there, but as I said, that movement would not be allowed in Australia because he didn't do half an hour of sprinting and doggies and winning tackles beforehand. He would have been hooked. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean in terms of what he does off the ball isn't valued in Australia. Now, there are sort of positives in the things we do value and the things we do appreciate as football fans in Australia. But ultimately, to take that next step, we do need to appreciate some players, the players with the ability, the players with that X factor. You do need to afford them that flexibility to go and do what they want to do on the pitch. But it is coached out of us at such a young age in terms of we've become robots, in terms of the way we play the game in Australia. And as I said, look, it's an extreme example. Who knows what would have happened? But we've come back to the point, if Lionel Messi grew up in Australia, it would have been coached out of him. He would have been on the backfield when the first team's doing training, he would have been on the backfield doing doggies, doing beep tests, winning sort of jumping headers, like working on his height. I'm just thinking those are the things that sort of get coached. Well, his height of jump sort of thing.
They're going to start tying rope to both. They're going to get 2 trees and get the rope on the limbs and stretch him out.
But that movement, that freedom of expression does get sort of coached out of you in Australia. Now, Australia might never be in the position where we're gifted with the natural talent of someone like Lionel Messi. That's only given to a Ronaldo or a Lionel Messi or a Pele. Fingers crossed Pele's okay. Unfortunately, he looks like could be sick at the moment. But that is where the frustration comes. I've seen so many great players in Australia who I've grown up with. I don't know whether they should be playing for Australia or should have made it to the national team, but they should have been given the opportunity to. But it's not afforded them. We're given these big 6'5" strikers who can run and they can throw elbows up against a defender and make it hard for them. And we need to start changing the direction.
I agree with you. And Tom, I don't mean to blow smoke up your ass for a lack of a better term, but technically you're one of the better players I've seen. And I've played football for a good chunk of my life on and off, but when I see you get on the ball and I say like you're technically sound, I think that's fair to say, and I wonder,
well, because I couldn't run because I wasn't a runner, so I had to get on the ball and move it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And if I look at someone like you with your technical ability, and again, with all due respect to the players in the A League, you have ability that surpasses some of the midfielders we see in the A League. And I don't say that again, blow smoke up your ass. That's genuinely just what I've seen. And I just think like if I look at someone with your ability and the fact that you couldn't make it in this country, but you managed to, you went to England for a little bit, right? You try to make it in the game there, and this is fundamentally the issue I have with the game in this country. If you actually go to grassroots at a grassroots level, most of the drills they're doing is with the right foot. They don't teach players at a young age to say, try your left foot. Or if you're left-footed, and that's the thing. So you got players who are left-footed who are starting to actually do more things with their right foot, but not developing the strength being their dominant foot. And by vice versa, players who are right-footed aren't being able to develop any sort of skill on their left foot. And then I look at a player like Anthony, who's come from Brazil, who plays for Manchester United, being quite one-footed, which is fine. Iron Robin, one of the most one-footed players I've ever seen. He was absolutely brilliant. Wonderful left foot. Lionel Messi. Everything's left foot. But there has to be, in the level of coaching at a grassroots level, you need to teach players to be well-rounded, because when you're an adult, it's very difficult to tell a player who's always been one-footed to start using the other foot, or how to protect the ball a little bit better, all these simple things. The other thing in this country, and again, and I if anyone can speak to it, it's you. Actually, I might ask you this question. If you look at the players that we saw through the golden generation of Australian football, so were the likes of Cahill, Emerson, Viduka, etc., did you have this financial system where to play representative football, you still did have to pay a premium? Or is that something that's actually come with the A-League and the NSL separating?
No, it's always been there. The player in my age, who everyone looked to, was at 12 years of age, we knew he was going to be a soccer because that's what was told to us, was Robbie Cruz. Robbie Cruz went down to the AIS and was at the Institute. And look, Robbie Cruz ultimately went on, fair play to him, to have a great career. I always liked him. He had a good career. Obviously, both in Australia, he played for the national team, World Cups. Obviously, had a bit of a career in Europe in the A-League. So fair play to him. But ultimately, down to the AIS at his age, I think it was usually about 7 or 10 grand a season to be down the AIS. And a lot of times it was painted as a bit of a scholarship. The rich parents always had their kids down the AIS. Now, those kids obviously developed into fantastic or very good footballers, but ultimately they were given that opportunity to develop because of sort of outside influences. But Robbie Cruz at 12 years old, we got told he's going to play in the Socceroos, and obviously he deserved to in regards to what he went on to do and developed into a fine footballer. But ultimately, in terms of at our age, he wasn't a better footballer than anyone. He was 10 times quicker than everyone. So he played up front as a striker, ball over the top. He'd score 5 goals every game. He was absolutely lightning quick. And obviously, again, fair play to he took on board the coaching and developed into a very good footballer. But you do look at the institutes, where the N-Swiss or AIS, you used to cost about 7 to 10 grand a season, unfortunately. And you do look at whether it's Australia or Brazil or Argentina or wherever around the world, there is just I don't know if it's a cultural thing or just the way, I don't know, football DNA. But the special players, the players with that X factor, they seem to always come from a bit of a sort of disadvantaged background in regards to challenges they do face in their personal and their family life. So they always have a bit of a hardship. And I'm just thinking, you could have a player, look, we're talking about Eric Ten Hag, comes from quite a wealthy background and he's proven to be a very good manager. It's not always just your background, but ultimately you do look at these players who do provide that something special. There is always something sort of similar in terms of their background and their childhood. I'm just saying that doesn't have to sort of be the answer and have to be the case. But yeah, the football now, because I speak to kids now, minimum it's $2,000 a year to play at a good level to get that coaching that is required to take that next step and develop. It's minimum $2,000, and I can tell you what you get for that $2,000. You get a nice tracksuit, you get a water bottle to keep. Some tracksuits even have to be handed back at the end of the season. You get a bag. The coaching, I've done plenty of coaching courses here in Australia. It's not coach education. Now, yes, well, maybe when you get your pro diplomas and everything, that is obviously more advanced and sort of relevant education that is much needed. But ultimately, the coach education at grassroots level to sort of the entry level to sort of coach your state leagues or your New South Wales Premier Leagues, there's no coach education. It's told, okay, when we get on the ball, try and create triangles. Like there's nothing there. There's no relevant information. And I'm just thinking, ultimately, I don't know whether this changes the media level in terms of the way we view football, the coach education level, sort of what players come through, the finances in regards to football. I think it's everything combined needs to sort of be redirected and shifted in regards to moving this game forward. Because I just talked about the challenges Australian players sort of do face in regards to their training and their development. There are positives in the way Australians play football and the way we view football in regards to the athleticism and physicality. They're huge traits. And we shouldn't just dismiss them and say, okay, no tall players or no quick players can play. No, they're huge traits, and their abilities and traits that should be harnessed and sort of promoted as well. But the other one shouldn't be pushed to the side because they're not that physical rugby league players sort of thing. So, look, it's a hard one. But ultimately, we're sort of tying that all back to the game. The difference was shown in regards to quality, but it's not in a critical way that 11 players on the pitch. Like, they did their best, and ultimately that's all we can ask.
Yeah, fundamentally, the criticism isn't at the players. I think when you see Australia, and the reason we're having this discussion is because Australia's overachieved. And the fact that we're now seeing, okay, well, if this is what we can do, given our systems are so flawed, imagine what we could do if we had good systems, good level of exposure to coaching to players of all level, regardless of their socioeconomic background or their socio-demographics. But look, all in all, credit to Argentina, played really well. I was really happy to see Lisandro Martinez come on. And I've got to say, Tommy, Lisandro Martinez, and just to bring this back, because obviously this is a United channel, he's so good on the ball. You could put him in any midfield in the world and he looks brilliant. You really could.
What do you think with Argentina now in regards to we got to the stage when Australia played Denmark the other day? It was one of those ones where I wanted to see Christian Eriksen do well, but suddenly Denmark are knocked out. I was like, oh, Christian Eriksen, he'll be back in time for the League Cup game in 2 to 3 weeks' time. So I saw a positive in that. Yeah. Lisandro Martinez obviously stays with Argentina now, so that's one extra game. I think they play Netherlands next. So that's obviously Martinez against Malacia. So Malacia and Luke Shaw, our two left backs, are still at the tournament. Okay, how long are they going to stay? How are you looking at Argentina now? Are you still looking at sort of hoping a player like Lionel Messi in Argentina gets to the final and we see Lisandro Martinez there? Or is your Man United hat coming on and sort of wanting Lisandro Martinez back in England?
I think no matter what happens, we are going to have a United player win this World Cup. So whether it's Martinez or Varane, and I think either France or Argentina make the final, just the way the ladder's kind of lined up. One of those teams you expect to make the final.
I've seen my semi-final tree. The semi-final tree I've seen now, it's perfect. It's Brazil, Argentina in one semi-final and Portugal v England in one semi-final. Can you imagine a World Cup semi-final between Portugal and England where Bruno Fernandes...
Do you think England get past France, though? Because
it's Portugal, France, or Portugal and England. Let's say England. And could you imagine, just a World Cup semi-final, could you imagine Bruno Fernandes dives, gets a penalty and sort of slots home a penalty and knocks England out of the World Cup? Oh. Could you imagine the reaction back in England when Bruno Fernandes steps down?
It'll be similar to Ronaldo's wink when Rooney got the red card. If you can think. When was it? Was that 06?
06.
Yeah. That was madness, by the way. I remember watching it at the time, and I'm probably because I was younger as well. I had the shits with Ronaldo. But the older I've gotten, I'm like, well, he's playing for his country. I mean,
what people forget with that one, with that Ronaldo got so much criticism, and look, his career at United was a little bit not in jeopardy in regards to the Man United aspect of it, but in terms of the way the media portrayed Ronaldo, people forget the one crucial part in that incident. Wayne Rooney stepped on Cavalli. Wayne Rooney deserved to get sent off.
Red card all day. Red card all day long. But I suppose the criticism, particularly from a United fan base side of things, was, that's your teammate. But look, rightly or wrongly, I think a lot, like you and I, probably put club over country. For a lot of these players, it's country over club. And when you're playing for your country or whatever team you're playing for at the time, that's the team you try to help win. Those are the interests that you're invested in at the time. So no criticism to Ronaldo there. But look, if Bruno scores a pen to knock England out, man, I'll be applauding it. I fucking love Bruno Fernandes. I'd love Portugal or Argentina. I would love one of them to win it just for the Ronaldo Messi legacy debate. I really wouldn't care who wins at that point either, but just it would honestly go down as the greatest story in world football, in world sport, I think.
Yeah, no, look, I think a lot of us have, and rightly so, in regards to how this last couple of weeks has played out with Ronaldo and Manchester United, but I think we do need to take a step back and just sort of understand and appreciate what is potentially going to happen. Now, look, obviously a long way to go. Both teams need to probably improve a little bit to both make the World Cup final. And then for both to happen, obviously the stars are going to have to align. It might only be one of the nations who do make it. But ultimately, if that story does eventuate, you're just going to have to enjoy it regardless of our feelings towards either of them at the moment. But is there anything else World Cup related in terms of that? Obviously, Netherlands v Argentina now, but any other talking points?
USA obviously fell out against the Netherlands earlier this morning. Let me ask you this, Tom. We've said who we think would win the World Cup. Has your opinion changed following this morning's results? And if it hasn't, tell me who's your final, because we're now starting to get a greater picture of what the final might look like. Who's in your final for the World Cup?
Look, I just said I think there's England get through France in the semi and meet Portugal in the semi-final. However, if I was a betting man, I think something about Brazil and France in the final. I'm starting to think now maybe France have enough to maybe get there.
I think so too.
So
I think we got that wrong. Brazil don't look like they got enough for me. And I don't know if you've seen, but Gabriel Jesus is now going to miss the rest of the World Cup. I think that's a big loss. I don't know if they've got enough to. They've got enough to cover him. But
Neymar will be back in.
Is different. Neymar turns it on when he feels like it. He's very frustrating to watch.
He might feel like it in a World Cup semi-final. If he's ever going to feel like it, it'll be then. But look, it is an interesting one. I would like to see semi-final of Portugal, England, and Brazil, Argentina. Then ultimately, the dream for me is Portugal v Argentina, just for the romanticist in me. But obviously, I would like England to do that there. Obviously, Marcus Rashford's doing very well. I'd love to see him score a World Cup winner. Harry Maguire clean sheet and sort of coming up for a bullet header to win the World Cup. Like, what a story that is. Then obviously we've got 4 Brazilians in the Brazil team. We've got Lisandro Martinez for Argentina. So no matter what happens, I think we can sit there as Man United fans and just enjoy the remaining weeks before Man United return in a couple of weeks' time.
Tell you what, if England managed to win the World Cup, if they thought they needed a strong police presence for the Queen's funeral,
can you see a situation where? Look, we've just discussed in regards to quality between Argentina and Australia. You do actually. You go through the England team. The England sort of culture has changed in the last 20 years. That's why we've seen players like Jack Grealish and obviously Phil Foden develop. Obviously, those players wouldn't have come through in the 80s, 90s. Only sort of really scattered. Paul Gascoigne was probably the only one, but he obviously had that sort of physical edge to his game. But England is starting to improve in regards to the technical ability. Could you see a situation where England have obviously on a day that they've got the quality to win, Harry Kane can pop up with a goal, that they can do that. Marcus Rashford can go past a player and put in the top corner. They've got that quality. But ultimately, in terms of beating a Spain, beating a France, beating a Brazil, beating an Argentina, do they have the quality to get a deserved win against one of those teams at the big stage?
The biggest problem for England for me will be if they have a 1-0 lead against a good side, does a midfield of Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, like central midfielders, is there enough maturity, not ability, that the ability's there? Is there enough maturity in those two players to control a game of football? That's my only question. I don't know if... I think it might be a bit too early. How old's Jude Bellingham? 19. Asking him to be part of a midfield to control a game against one of these bigger sides, it's going to be a big ask and a big challenge. And Declan Rice, I like him. I think he's a really good footballer. I think he's claiming to get out of West Ham. His comment the other week.
It was my next thing. I didn't see that comment, but I know he has been in the news. Declan Rice. Now I don't know if it's because he's partnered Jude Bellingham in midfield, but Declan Rice, this £100 million player, where's he going to go? Chelsea, Man United? Is he worth it? Is he not worth it? Now Jude Bellingham's coming. We're having those discussions around Jude Bellingham. Declan Rice is still there. I'm just thinking, is it just nailed on? He goes to Chelsea, or is there still something in the United links, or does he stay at West Ham? Like, does Arsenal make the Champions League and Arsenal go big for him? Like, I'm not sure. What's the latest on Declan Rice?
I could see Arsenal. I think he goes to Arsenal or Chelsea. I think Declan Rice to United's gone, to be honest.
Liverpool replace Jordan Henderson?
Sorry? In the English side?
No. Could Declan Rice potentially go to Liverpool?
Yeah.
Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, potentially not the players they were.
Has Liverpool ever put out that kind of cash, though, for a player? I don't know.
But is any club, West Ham, just going to go, oh, hang on, he's not worth 100 million. Maybe we should accept 60, 50 or 60. That's why no clubs have gone in for him.
I tell you what, Tom, when United come to town for a player, there's always an extra 30, 40 million on it. I reckon if Declan Rice moves tomorrow, it'll be less than £100 million. Certain of it.
Well, no, it has to.
team going for around
No club's
60,
going in. No club's going to go in there with 100 million. I think, and this is first impressions. Kind of made this clear with Declan Rice. First time I saw him play, it was a horrendous performance, and that does stick now. I know he's obviously developed into a fine footballer, and obviously deserving of all the praise that comes his way. But I see Declan Rice. People mention over 100 million pounds.
No,
for me, he's a 50 million pound player. And £50 million player, like I'm saying that like it's a bad player. He's obviously it's a very good footballer, costing that much money. But I don't see that special player there.
He is. I don't mean to say this disrespectful. He's a budget Michael Carrick. Is that fair? He's got similar traits, but I don't think he plays like that.
I think he's just and not to downplay. We've talked about different traits in regards to the difference between Argentina and Australia.
Good, don't get me wrong.
There are physical traits that are important in midfield, which he does sort of provide in abundance. But I don't think he's a footballer who sort of gets on the ball and dictates play. I think he's there. He's energy. He's a bit of a jack of all trades. I just think that is important to have. But he's not someone to go and Michael Carrick dictated the play at the highest level. I can't see Declan Rice going away to the Bernabeu and being man of the match in regards to
how old's Declan Rice now? He'd be around mid-20s. I'd say he's 24, 25, 26, somewhere in there. The player he is the
early 20s probably, yeah.
That's the thing. I think he's improved a lot, but McTominay's improved a lot. Do you remember McTominay when he first came into the United side to now? I'd say there's been a strong development in terms of his ability, but there's a ceiling to that ability. And if I'm being honest, if I put Declan Rice and Scott McTominay next to each other, is there much of a ability difference? Not for me.
Look, that's a hard one. A lot of people won't agree with me, but a lot of people would argue that Declan Rice is a better footballer. I won't disagree with that. But okay, he's a better footballer. Better footballer. But what does Manchester United? What's better for Manchester United? Sometimes it's not the better footballer. Sometimes it's something else, like bringing a £100 million player in to add 5% over. I think I'll keep McTominay.
And I know we're waffling on a little bit here. Kevin De Bruyne is a better central midfielder than Bruno Fernandes. Do we both agree on that? I think Bruno Fernandes suits Manchester United better, though, than Kevin De Bruyne would currently.
The De Bruyne that was at the World Cup, yes. De Bruyne overall, look, it's hard. The systems in the way he sort of flourished at Manchester City. If we had a better team, at Man United, De Bruyne would fit in a lot better. I think it's one of those ones. Look, I understand it. Look, I like Bruno Fernandes over De Bruyne in regards to everything that comes with him. But ultimately, the better footballer, the better footballer is Kevin De Bruyne. But who knows? Obviously, not a great time with Belgium. I think he signed a new deal at Manchester City not too long ago. So I think the future is at Manchester City for De Bruyne. But fingers crossed he can continue his.
Well, you want a late career surge at Man United, Tom? Would you take it? Would you take Kevin De Bruyne?
Well, no. I was just thinking a potential move away. I was thinking could he move to the continent at some stage? But I think I
want you to pretend he could come to United. Would you take him now, or is there he's been with Manchester City a bit too long? I don't really want to touch that.
No. That in some aspects that probably increases my desire to go and get a Manchester City player to annoy them. If we can go get a Manchester City legend and sort of have them win something in the red half of Manchester, I think that increases my desire for that. But
look, big contract. Jeez, Kevin De Bruyne.
I think he's the highest paid, behind Ronaldo. I think he's the highest paid player in the Premier League.
He is under contract until end of the 24-25 season. So he's still
okay. Yeah, so in a year's time, I think we'll start to see movement around De Bruyne, whether that stays at Manchester City or someone else comes in.
Obviously, Man United. Now, is he? Yeah, he's 31 now.
Yeah, so I think maybe he doesn't stay at Manchester City. Maybe he does have that move elsewhere, whether it goes to, I could see him in Germany, like Bayern Munich or something, sort of to rack up a few trophies. But
England,
look, who knows?
Tomorrow? Give me a score prediction.
England, Senegal. Oh, look, I've liked Senegal this time. I liked a lot of the African teams. I really like Morocco, what they've done in this World Cup. But in regards to Senegal v England, look, ultimately, we can see the situation where Senegal hit England on the counter. We all can see what happens there in terms of Harry Maguire maybe getting caught on the ball and Senegal sort of bursting past them and getting something. But ultimately, Harry Maguire's been good. Luke Shaw's been good. England have been relatively decent. I just think they probably just have a little bit too much in terms of, to see if Marcus Rashford's in form. If you've got Harry Kane in and around the box, something can happen. Phil Foden is killing it. Ultimately, quality, like today, Australia-Argentina, ultimately, the quality will prove too much. And I do think England will not make it comfortable, but I think it'll be one of those sort of standard sort of 2-0 wins maybe.
Yeah, I see it blowing up toward the end of the game.
Anything else we'll touch on before we do wrap up? Obviously, England, Senegal. We're both in France.
Look,
Have a bit of a
I
late
could
shot.
talk football forever. Hold on, let me just see what the rest of the round of 16s now locked in, isn't it? So what have we got over the next coming day? So
The game
Japan,
I like, the game I like
Croatia,
is Morocco,
Germany.
Spain. I really like Spain. I think Spain are potentially one of the dark horses for this if they
Morocco,
can sort of
Spain, that'll be a good
maybe add
game.
one of their goals. But I think Morocco potentially, in terms of an upset in this round of 16. Some people thought USA might do Netherlands. That didn't prove to be true. Netherlands got the job. I think Morocco against Spain. I'll
Did
keep an eye on that
Gakpo
one.
score? I didn't happen to watch that game.
Gakpo.
No, he didn't. Memphis, Daily Blind.
Daley Blind scored a beautiful goal with his right foot.
Daily Blind's a footballer, man.
Actually, two of their goals, the right wing back crossed it to Daley Blind, who was the left back, scored. And then later on, Daley Blind crossed it to the right back, who scored. It was obviously Johan Cruyff.
I'm in a waffling mode, so if you want me to be quiet, but can we talk about Louis van Gaal for a minute? Netherlands doing bits, playing good football.
I'd love to see him win it.
The Netherlands. I think they're a shout. They'd be an underdog choice for sure, but they set up well. They play good football. They got good attacking players. They could be an upset. They could be an underdog.
They play Argentina now. They can get it, Argentina.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they absolutely could. And you know what? Credit to Louis van Gaal. I know he split the United fan base a lot. I think with Van Gaal, if he believes in his team, I think he lets you play football. I think what we saw at United was he clearly didn't believe in the capability of the players, and that's why we saw the really pragmatic approach. But if you saw the football that Van Gaal played at Barcelona, at Bayern Munich, it's pretty good football. Do you think? I don't.
One season away from it improving at Old Trafford. If you had another window and was backed, I think it would start to turn. It's obviously off the back of a win in the FA Cup. There was going to be a shift, in my opinion.
He's the one manager that I say, if we kept him for another season, I think it could have been a different outcome.
Yeah. No, look, ultimately, in terms of the way it was going, he deserved to be sacked. I was happy with the change.
He won the FA Cup on the way out, though.
Yeah, no, but the way it happened, it was the wrong decision. Or not the wrong decision. It shouldn't have happened the way it happened. I was at the pub at Scruffy Murphy's here in Sydney. We got news, which everyone got news around the world. But I remember there before he was lifting the trophy, we all had the tweet saying he was sacked. And I'm just thinking that was. I hate using the word; it gets thrown out far too much. But that was disgraceful in terms of the way that news came out.
You know how every time a player retires or a player writes a book, we're like, I can't wait for that book to write out. If Ed Woodward ever writes a book, I'm on that shit.
No, the book I want, Gareth Bale. I think he's got a brilliant story in terms of what he's done, what he's won, what he's achieved, what he's experienced, but then also fallen off the cliff and why that happened, and sort of some of his interactions with Real Madrid. I think Gareth Bale, that's the book I'm waiting for.
He, the way he was marginalized at Real Madrid after
being brilliant. So look what he did, scoring overhead kicks in the Champions League final. Like what he did at Real Madrid. I think he was man of the match or scored a goal. No, Di Maria got man of the match before he came to Old Trafford, but it was that game Gareth Bale tore it up as well in Champions League finals. And ultimately, though, you do see what he produced on the pitch for Wales this tournament, and it was shocking.
He's a shadow of his former self, isn't he? What do you put that down to? Because if you look at the way sports science has come on, I think before, like a pacey player, I think you would have said, by 30 they dip off. Now, if you're a pacey player or an agile player, I think you're still at the peak of your powers at 32, 33. Look at Benzema. He just won a Ballon d'Or at 34 years of age.
I think it comes down to a little bit of science in regards to we view pace as sort of this speed thing, and obviously that is, but I think so much of it now is power. Like if you can be quick over 2 or 3 meters, okay, you're not going to win a 100-meter race. But if you're quick over 2 or 3 meters, which isn't speed, that's power. That's muscle in the legs, and that to generate that force to go past a player. And sometimes that looks like speed, but ultimately, I do think the players, the way they're getting bigger, they're putting on a little bit more muscle. If you look at the 100-meter final at the Olympics, they look like bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not the runners who do the marathons and everything, but they're big guys. And I just think because players are putting on a little bit more muscle now in terms of the way sort of football and athleticism is moving forwards, they're able to sort of look a little bit quicker than what they probably once were 10, 15 years ago.
Tell you what, Tom, I'll start doing my lunges ahead of next Sunday so I can be powerful for you.
Well, we do have, as Larry alludes to, this time next week, Sunday, the 11th of December, I believe it is. If you are in Sydney, the Manchester United Supporters Club are taking on the Arsenal fans here in Sydney.
Is Scott
4 p.m.
playing? Is Scott Borg playing? I want to know.
Is Scott playing? I'd like to drop him a message. I could see Scott sort of dictating, being a little bit of a midfield general. In the midfield, sort of a bit of a Keane and Vieira battle.
Scott, if you want to speak to RJ about what I do to players from It's a Football thing on a football pitch, please.
Did you get near RJ when we played Chelsea?
After the ball, yeah.
After the ball.
Paul, seriously, RJ is a sound guy. I do feel a little bit bad. I was giving him a couple kicks and shoves in the back. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I apologize, RJ.
If you are in Sydney though, Sunday, 11th of December, 4 p.m. kickoff. Everyone is welcome to come down. 5 Sports Car Bar. It'll be all over our social medias in the build up to it though. But Larry and I and a few others who obviously acquaint the live chat from time to time will be there, donning the boots and the red shirt of Man United. Do come down, have a barbecue, have a bite to eat. A little bit of money goes towards.
Make sure you bring your big water bottle to stay hydrated.
The big water bottle. I always take a Powerade. Powerade's my one, not the dumbbell you're drinking out of. But hopefully everyone did enjoy that. A little bit of World Cup content. Obviously, we'll be back on, who knows, tomorrow night, Tuesday night. I'm not sure when there's a little bit of Man United World Cup news. We'll obviously be first to bring it to you, as always. But until then, hope everyone has a good end to their weekend. Larry, any parting thoughts?
Just a reminder that the Glazers are trying to sell Manchester United.
I look at the last couple of weeks in terms of what
I forgot about Man United. It's furthest thing from my mind at the moment.
I still can't get over Ronaldo's been sacked. I know he's potentially left, but ultimately the story is Ronaldo's sacked and the Glazers selling the club. These are things where, if you go back a year ago, the size of this news, we should be doing 7 videos a day on it in regards to this is unbelievable sort of news, but it's kind of, okay, yeah, it is what it is.
You know what? Credit to United's PR and marketing team, stroke of genius. If you were ever going to... If you're the Glazers, because the Glazers get dogs abuse every day, right? It's just gone away quietly in the background because the World Cup's on. It's and that's why I actually think they wanted to announce Ronaldo during the World Cup. They wanted to announce that they were going to sell the same day. And meanwhile, all of that's happening, I think England or Portugal were playing on that night. Perfect.
They are brilliant at what they do, and it looks like potentially if we'll get into Ratcliffe or Dubai or whoever. It looks like at the moment a betting man would suggest potentially it's going to be an American investment. Who knows that could change tomorrow? Dubai might be the favourites, but at the moment it does look like an American investment company could be leading the race, and obviously who's in charge or who's sort of maybe facilitating that deal. It does look like Ed Woodward is potentially involved in regards to bringing this deal together.
Well, the last time he facilitated a deal.
Yeah. But look, that is a debate for another day when we get more information. But if you did enjoy that, please.
Peace of mind to you and anyone who watches this video who does support United. Leverage buyouts are not legal anymore, so that will not be happening.
Well, that won't happen, but obviously the motive of someone can still have the same motive. Well, once they do have the keys to the door, so that'll be the main thing in terms of why someone is buying Manchester United. But as I said, we'll be definitely doing many a discussion on that in the coming weeks and the coming months. But until then, hope everyone has a good weekend. Please do leave a like on the video; it'd be very much appreciated. If you are watching on playback, leave a comment in the comment box. That would be very good of you, and we'll interact with you, sort of get all your thoughts in there. But Larry, I'll chat to you in a day or two.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Cheers, mate.